Hey, hi, hello, Steph Devs here, and I'm working on my indie game. Today I'm working on some level design, and we're going to talk about metrics, which is a very, very, very important and dear to my heart topic. If you get metrics wrong in your game, just a lot of things are not going to work out very well, and it'll all end up feeling weird and look weird and unnatural. So I've been using this little test environment here to test the mechanics and develop things in the game for a little while now. But it's time to replace it with something more representational of what the game will look like and how it should play. So you can see here I have some kind of base or point of interest, which is a combat arena, and that's what this is meant to represent. It's a very minimal version of that, but I can go in there, fight some guys, and then get out. And around that I have a very minimal environment with these rocks just kind of strewn about. Now this is very far from what the environment should look like, but at least it got the point across of going through some environment, hitting a base or a point of interest, doing some combat, and then escaping. In reality, this is actually going to end up being multiple points of interest, so we're thinking about doing 4 to 6 versions of these bases here and distributing it amongst a larger environment. Now, I spent some time the other night doing a little bit of sculpting and just kind of testing out some ideas for the larger scale environment that I had in mind. And here's the result of that. Now, the scale is completely wrong and all over the place, but it was really meant to just be a sketch. So that's okay for now, but if we're gonna move forward on the environment and do a second pass or get something playable out of it, we really need to start thinking about metrics. For reference, here's the ship as it exists currently in the game. So this is the player model, and this player model was created back when this game looked nothing like this. It was a VR 1v1 tabletop kind of arena fighting game. So when the game was in that form, I went with a approximately 1x1 meter unit square sized player. Now at that point, the size of the arena and the players within it was fairly arbitrary, and they were kind of treated like toys on a chessboard. So the reason for going with a 1x1 thing was simply just to make things simpler. It kept the player physics and movement controls and the projectiles. It kept everything very simple. Everything was a base. 1 unit is the player size. But now that we've shifted gears and the game actually takes place in a larger environment, in a more real-world inspired environment, the size of these ships actually needs to make sense. The scale of the ship that I've decided to go with is about a 10 by 10 meter scale instead of a 1x1. The reason for this isn't completely arbitrary, even though it just seems like I scaled it up by 10. Fictionally, the player ships and the enemies should be, fairly dangerous and formidable machines of war. They can't just be little dinky things that could be shot down by an AR. So I definitely wanted to make them fairly large, but I wanted to make them as small as possible within that constraint so that we can still use the environment around it to offer some interesting sensations of scale. So in basic terms, this thing ain't no toy, but at the same time, it's not going to dwarf trees and make them look like grass. So now that we have a fairly clear idea of what the scale of the player ship is, we can start to create some combat arenas with that. And this is where VR comes into play, because I've been really enjoying sculpting in VR recently. I'm not good at it, but I feel like it's easier for me to sculpt in there than it is to sketch on paper. I'm still a big fan of sketching stuff out and getting many rough things done quickly rather than going straight to 3D. But when it comes to actually making something make sense spatially, it's pretty nice to do that in VR. Welcome to virtual reality. Here I am in Oculus Medium. Got my 2 hands and I'm ready to do some sculpting. And we can do this. So first of all, let's load up what I had going on before. I also love the updates that they've done to this since the last time I've used it. It's quite powerful. It's got everything you really need. You can save and load things and import models and whatnot. So here's what I was working on last. So you can see these different impact sites, these pink things. They're not going to be pink in the game. But yeah, the basic idea is that you have these different points of interest. And each one of these is going to act as a standalone combat arena where you go in and there will be loot within it and a bunch of enemies. So I want to do a second pass on this and expand on it a little bit. But before we do that, we need to define these areas here. What is the actual shape of it? How big is it? How much room do we need to maneuver? Is there multiple rooms? We just need to explore that. So I'm going to put this aside over here, and then this also has a really awesome feature where you can bring in meshes. So I can use an actual model of the ship as scale, but we're gonna need that to get smaller somehow. And the other thing I want to do is bring in some other models of real world things so that I can keep an idea of what the scale of this arena is. So I've got some other models that I've downloaded for free from the internet from various sources. Now I have them here. Now the only issue is that these come in at like really random scales. So like if I bring in this Audi here, look at this thing. That's not what I want, right? I need this to be very small, and this seems to be the minimum size that it goes for somehow. But I'm going to hop over to Blender and adjust all of these models that I have in that folder to be approximately to scale with each other at least, because right now some of them are microscopic and some of them are kilometers wide. Okay, that took forever, but I finally have a nice little play set of objects that are to scale. So I've got a bunch of apartment buildings of different size here, from 3 stories to 28 stories or something like that. I've got a whole street scene. I've got a tank. I've got a car. Tank is bigger than the car, and our player ship here is bigger than the tank. And I've got a relatively large tree. See it next to the lamppost. Everything kind of is pretty close to making sense. So I can use this little guy to create or as a reference to create my gameplay arenas, and then the rest of the stuff will be really useful in creating the rest of the environment around that. Alright, here's what I've got after about 30 or 40 minutes playing around. Unfortunately, I realized just now that I haven't been recording, but I'll do another one and I'll record that one. But here's what I've got so far for this one. It's got 2 different entrances. You can come under this little bridge on this side here, or you can come up here on the side. It's all very naturally occurring stuff, and I've got a few different little platforms and ramps and connections here. I'm not sure how interesting this is going to be gameplay-wise. I think it's too small and there's not enough opportunity for taking cover and getting surprised by the enemies. But I think I'm going to make one more for the sake of recording it and having another version, and then I'm going to try to get this in-game and see what I need to do to get this playable. And here is what I've come up with for the night. I really like this. I went with a more subtractive approach and went for more corridors and more obstacles. And it turned out really well. It got a lot of really interesting paths, a lot of one-way routes. I mean, we'll see if they're interesting once it's in the game and we can actually try playing in it. But yeah, this is looking pretty sick, I have to say. I'm very happy with this. It's also a lot larger than the other one. There's a chance I may have messed up with the scale, although the 2 game pieces look like they're still the same size. So yeah, I did actually just end up going a lot larger on this. I mean, you can almost fit this within here. There's a good chance that this is just too dang small. I mean, you can definitely fit the ship in there, but it's pretty tight, and especially with the speeds at which you're able to move in the game. This is probably going to end up being very, very much too small, but I might be able to expand this out to be a little wider and to have more going on, like over here and stuff. Continue this idea, but this looks like more of an appropriate sized arena, I think, because this has some potential for exploration and finding loot in different spots, finding more enemies to combat. But we'll see. I'm going to drop these into the game and see what happens. Sculpting in VR is amazeballs. This is great. Like, I'm able to just play around with forms. Like, I had zero idea what I was doing here, and then I just started kind of making cuts, and then I ended up with a couple of different patterns. I'm like, oh, okay, this looks like it could be a pathway this way, and I did that, and then suddenly I have a drop off. I don't know. It's very easy just to explore little ideas. So we'll see how this translates into game engine stuff, but and gameplay. But at this point, like, I'm ready to say, like, this, I recommend, if you have a VR headset and you haven't tried Oculus Medium yet, give that shit a shot, because this is really fun. And I am, by the way, by no means a sculptor. Like, I know how to use ZBrush a little bit, but I can't really remember the controls, which is why I came to this. And this has just been pure creativity. This is kind of funny as well. I'm looking at my screen on the Oculus dashboard here, trying to get an idea of what this will look like in-game with how much screen space you have. God, it looks really cool. So yeah, that kind of gives you an idea of what it'll look like from the gameplay perspective. So yeah, I think I'm going to call it there for the night. Thank you very much for watching, and let me know in the comments below what you think of this sculpting levels in VR business. I think it's really cool. If you've tried that before, please let me know what your workflow is like. And if you haven't tried it but you do have VR, definitely give it a shot. Anyway, that's all for me for the night and for this video. So thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!